got Punk. Where's he at?
I was caught texting.
Also, Katie, stack up, everyone.
Yeah! Starbucks.
James Thomas in the building. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Why is everybody so late?
Luciano, count. And the oh so handsome Michael. It's a bar. They'll join us if they can make it. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Tony Gallatica, the moderator today. Let's get the ball rolling. We have our own Callie on the mic. Isn't that kind of cool? Here, there she is. Say hi. So if you have a question, you want to line it behind her. And then we have Kevin on this side, correct? Hi Kevin. Hi Callie. Good morning to the two of you. Awesome. Who has had the best time thus far? You guys included. Give it a clap. Awesome. Wow, you guys worked on a great show. I've been a huge fan for so many years, and I've worked with DragonCon for 17 of them, but I've never had the great opportunity to work with you guys on stage. So this is a huge honor for me as well, so thanks for being here. Awesome, absolutely. So ladies first, of course. Miss Callie, who do you have for your first question? Still working it out? It happens. It's still early. Okay, you're gonna have a moment. So, hey Kevin, who's your first question? What you got?
Hey, how are you guys doing? This question is for Mr. Callis. Your comedic timing is brilliant. My question is, how often was it your interpretation of the dialogue and your improv making it funny, or how often do they specifically ask you to be funny in the scenes?
So I hear. I wasn't supposed to be funny. So I was told. Actually, as well, forgive me, I'll try and make this as brief as possible. We auditioned a lot of times. I mean, Eddie and Mary didn't audition. They were just, asked to be in the show. I went through an obstacle course of auditions. And the scene that I was asked to audition for was the scene where number 6 finds me in bed with another woman, which I did think was funny. And the director said to me, he was like, it's very dangerous if, this is not a funny show. And then after we'd filmed something, we'd done the mini-series, he was like, actually, the show is so dark that we need some, as it were, light entertainment within the auspices, within the aegis that we are working under, and you need to carry on doing this. Essentially, for me, the humour came because he was monstrous. He was involved in something utterly monstrous, and so then the humour was a way of deflecting it slightly, because otherwise you just hate him rather than love to hate him, if you know what I mean. And I also felt that I could have made him a lot of ways, but I wanted to make him a really bad liar. So, and having watched certain episodes back, I feel the same annoyance. Like when you're watching Gaius, you're like, oh God, what they tell? So transparent. But I thought, essentially I brought a bit of that to the party.
Good question. Well done.
Hi,
Hi, sorry, this is for Miss Sackhoff. My name is Steve, I'm a huge fan. I was just curious if you ever got any flack or any, anyone telling you about how Starbuck was going to be a female in the remastered version, when the original Battlestar Galactica, he was a male. I've always wondered if you ever got any feedback about that.
Yeah, so the first time we went to Comic-Con, were you there the first time?
No.
I think it was Eddie and Mary and myself and Jamie. Thanks. And the miniseries hadn't aired, or maybe it just aired, or I don't remember, but I came out and I was booed. And so it was sort of one of those weird moments. I remember very distinctly getting the role and not realizing that the character was a man, and my father was like, "That's great, honey, have you seen it?" And I was like, "No, why?" And he was like, "You should go watch it." So my best friend and I, went down to our local Blockbuster and rented a VHS and came back. It was like 2001, 2002. So, and then we're watching it and drinking wine, and at one point we started realizing that they were talking about Starbuck, and we were like, "Oh, that's so weird, where is she?" And we're like, "We should rewind this, because we're really drunk." And we rewound it, and I remember just sitting there going, "Oh shit." And realizing, "Oh, right, okay." And so I knew that people were upset, or going to be upset, but the whole Comic-Con thing sort of took me by surprise. I didn't realize that people had such an affinity for a show that was on the air for less than one season, or just one season. It was, to me, that was such a blip. But for fans of the show, it was very passionate about it. So it took a while, I think that I've won most of the people over, but there are still people that will tell me, just on Twitter, you know how people do, because they're so kind. They'll tweet you and go, "So I really love you in Longmire, haven't seen anything else because I refuse to watch Battlestar Galactica because of you." And you're like, "Oh my God. FYI, Boomer used to be a black guy." Nobody seems to notice that. Anyway.
But to build a little bit more onto that, did you feel this empowerment of, we're going to honor the old series, but we're going to take it to a new level, and we're going to make it amazing, and we're going to allow a new side or a new stylization of fans to embrace this new product so that it can go hand in hand in a partnership?
Yeah, God, I wish I was so self-aware at 22. As soon as I realized the character was a man, I stopped watching it. So I'd never seen the original series, because I knew in that moment I would never be able to copy what this woman did, or try and be who this woman was, which is what I sort of thought I was hired for. And in that moment, I sort of realized that I just needed to completely make her my own. And so I think that, she was written very, very strong and very much sort of, this masculine, woman. And I remember the miniseries going back, and if you watch the performance, she actually got more feminine after the miniseries, because I remember being so unhappy with my performance in the miniseries, because I was trying so hard to be a guy, because I knew people hated the choice. And I was so disappointed with myself for falling victim to people's opinions of myself. And so I realized in that moment that I just needed to make her who I wanted her to be, and not try and make anyone else happy anymore. And so that's sort of when she took on a life of her own, I guess.
Awesome. Well said. Next question.
Hi, so my question is also for Katie. Sorry to make you keep talking.
I don't talk fast.
No worries, we'll spread it out, I promise.
It's sort of similar to the question I asked yesterday to James and Trish, but basically after Starbuck dies and returns, you're aware that Starbuck is not the way that she was before. And I was always wondering, for you as an actor, did you believe her to still be Starbuck, who was changed by her death? Or did you believe her to be a new being that was pretending to be Starbuck, or how did you play that character? What did you believe her to be?
So they had come to me, I had asked them, you know, what had happened to her, and if it was Starbuck that just magically came back. And Ron said, all you need to know is that this is not Starbuck anymore. And at all. It's not the same being, it's not the same person at all. And your only objective is to convince them that you are, and to get them to follow you. And so I sort of, with that weight on her, I wanted to make her desperate that season. And sort of like a shell of who she was, because she was almost like a heightened version of who she was the first 3 seasons, because I wanted, if you know you're not you, but you're trying to convince people you're you, every one of your mannerisms, every one of the, like, those attributes that make you who you are, you're going to make them even bigger, because you're like, come on, believe me. And so I just tried to make her wildly desperate. And, you know, as big as I could, but still within the confines of Starbuck, you know. So.
I wanted to go further with that. Miss Kate, when you found out that you were a Cylon, that also had to change probably the way that you approached the role, because you had a little bit more knowledge than you originally thought. Or did you already know that you were a Cylon coming into the part?
Oh God, no, I didn't know I was a Cylon. You guys all know that story. No, when I was told that I was the 5th Cylon, there had been, I don't know, a year or 2 of people speculating who should be the 5th. And I was never privy to anybody saying, well, I think you're going to be the Cylon, because nobody thought of Ellen Ty as the Cylon, at least that I knew of. So when Ron told me that I was the 5th, I thought I was stuck in traffic, and I thought he was fucking with me and around. You know, and then I burst into tears when he told me I was the 5th. And then I went into like a panic, because the pressure was huge. The amount of anticipation that build up, and like for Ellen Ty to be the 5th, it was just like, you know, I was worried if my house was going to get, you know, TP'd, or I was really worried about the fans really not liking this idea. And in terms of adjusting my character, yesterday I shared at a panel that I had a meltdown before I started to shoot my first scene as the 5th, and went to Michael's trailer, just a wreck, and he just said, "You're Ellen. You don't have to do anything. You are her," and it grounded me. And really just, Ellen as the final Cylon is Ellen, but the script changed. Yeah. So as an actor, you play the scene, and it was with, you know, a lot of my stuff was with Dean Stockwell, and that was a new relationship, and honestly, I was so frightened about being the 5th and just being hated. It's so interesting, the vulnerability that we all carried, you know, in these big roles that were iconic for you guys, that means so much. We wanted to do our best, and I literally just bared down and like played the scene. You know, what's going on in this scene, and what does my character want, and what's he saying? How do I feel about, you know, the Meissner technique? But it was nerve-wracking, to say the least. It was tough for me, but
It was well done. So
I honestly, the whole filming of that being is a blackout for me. Like, I haven't seen it, and I was just digging deep and white knuckling and trying to relax at the same time. It was really scary for me, but ultimately, I'm of course thrilled that I was chosen to be the 5th, because I like the whole idea of the ties being the oldest couple in the universe, and the idea of being the mother of all Cylons. I mean, to me, that was like the greatest honor in the world, and in the sci-fi world, it was something I wasn't expecting at all.
Right. Next question.
Good morning. This question is for the whole panel. What costume, if you could do it to the max, excluding playing yourself or characters you've played, would you choose to be at a con or similar?
Ooh.
Choose to be what?
Which character's costume? Something like, playing somebody else at a convention would you like to dress up as?
Oh, wait, at a convention or within the confines of Battlestar Galactica?
At a convention. So outside of Battlestar, outside characters you played, characters that you...
Oh, you could take that to the level of absurd.
What would you do it
Let
to
me
the max?
start by saying I very, very seldom wear it, so I would wear Ty's dress uniform. Yeah.
I saw somebody, forgive me, I had no idea what this character was. I saw somebody wearing this, he was on stilts and he was like, or maybe it was a woman, I don't know, like 9 feet tall, and I think it was a tree. What was that?
Groot.
Yes.
Come on.
That's cool.
That's very cool. It answers the question within the confines of Battlestar Galactica, but you know what? Groot is universal in outer space, so it could work.
Was it Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah, he was asking in BSG. Was there like another character who maybe had like wardrobe or costume?
No, outside of
It's
it.
her. I'm wrong.
Well, within the confines of Battlestar Galactica, number 6 had really great stuff. You had good stuff too. My brain is not working, but at the con, the best costume I've seen so far was the Sugar Plum Fairy. It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
So I'm so baffled about the question. Is it what we would dress up as?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a Battlestar character. Okay.
This is
It's
America's
Sunday, we're all
Elite.
I love, well, I'm impressed with everything I see. I was saying to Luciano, are you getting any good Halloween ideas? And because I like to dress up for Halloween still. And but I love the anime costumes. They're just so dear and sweet and playful and I don't know, something very candy-like about them.
It's a really good question. Coming to something like Dragon Con is it's exciting for everybody because the imagination and the work that's gone into so many people's costumes. And what I love is the way that you guys appreciate and respect each other. And some people have come here dressed in a fashion that they know other people will appreciate. You take pictures of each other. There are just too many. The only thing I'd say about myself is that walking around like this at DragonCon, people assumed that I was in costume. And over the last few days, I've had people come up to me and go, "It's good, buddy, it's good." I don't get it. I don't get it. Is it king of the hill? Because it looks like you really didn't try. But it's good. And this is like a few times. But the first time when somebody said, "I don't get it," I didn't know what he was talking about.
Oh my God.
What's that?
Johnny Knoxville and Walking Tall.
I'll take that, thank you.
You really look like that guy.
Yeah, which one?
James Callis. You look
Like
like
that actor. Yeah,
just like him.
that's right.
Good try.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Matthew from Charleston, South Carolina. Real quick, because I gotta ask, otherwise this joke will bomb. Have you guys seen The Handmaid's Tale? Okay, oh, this will be great. You guys can explain this to Katie later. Katie, my question is for you. You were trapped on a planet with a Cylon doctor for very specific reasons. How do you feel about The Handmaid's Tale pretty much stealing your plot line.
Is that the plot line of Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah.
I need to watch it.
Yeah.
Is that on Amazon?
Hulu, yeah.
I don't have Hulu. I have it. There's so many platforms. Like,
So little time.
yeah. Oh, is it a book?
It's set in a dystopian
I'll do
future.
that.
Yeah.
It's set in a dystopian future?
Yeah, where
Doesn't she dress like a nun?
there are women that are farmed basically to be child bearers. Yeah.
Canadian author, that's why you don't know.
Yeah, that's American.
But there was a group of them in our Dragon Con parade yesterday, and behind them was one of the T-Rexes dressed up with a little red Handmaid's Tale dress. Which, because it's a very serious product, so to see that coming down for the power of women and liberation thing, so it sends lots of messages of empowerment to people about how not to, in a political environment where you were oppressed, to not allow that to happen in our society. So then to see that little T-Rex and the little handmaid, that was so brilliant.
It sort of looks like the costume from the Flying Nun TV
Correct.
show.
But red,
That
yes.
used to be on TV.
With Sally Field, yes.
So, quick funny story. I was filming a movie and they wouldn't let me into the UK to get my work permit. I don't know what happened, but so they sent me to Ireland to wait for it. And whilst in Ireland, I wanted to go to the cliff where Rebecca De Mornay flies over it and kills herself in Three Musketeers. Do you remember? Yeah. So come to find out, you can no longer go to the edge of the cliff because the nuns were accidentally flying off of it in their habits. It's a true story. So they put a huge wall up so you can't get close to the edge anymore because the nuns were literally like praying to Jesus and then like, oh God! Because it was so high up there, and it was so sheer. I guess the wind was absolutely insane, and it would just, nuns would fly off the edge of the cliff in Ireland.
Well, that's one way to meet your maker.
I mean, your last thought would have been Jesus.
Right. Next question.
Sorry.
I love these panels.
I hate to ask my question now because it's really serious.
Oh no, we can take it back there.
One of the things I really loved about Battlestar Galactica was just how much it wasn't afraid to go into some kind of dark, morally gray areas. I was wondering if there was ever a point where your characters had to do something that you did not want your character to be doing.
Ooh.
Didn't what?
You didn't want your character to be doing.
Yeah.
I have a story about that. My last episode, The Passage, they had written Kat that she was hoarding food. And I really didn't I didn't want to go out like that. And I didn't think that out of all the pilots or all the, that she would be that person to hoard food. So I talked to the director and maybe one of the producers about it, and I was like, I don't want to go out like that. Everybody's gonna hate Kat. Like, she's stealing food from everybody, and they had me like collecting food and hiding it in under my bed or something. So luckily they took that out. So you know.
Because you did film it, didn't you?
Yeah, parts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, parts of it, but. In the end,
And it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that that's who she was. So.
Well, God. You're much more eloquent than I am in the morning, and always. Okay, so I have a story. I don't know if it's appropriate for your question, but I had to do the scene to seduce Dean Stockwell to get my husband out of, the concentration camp. And I had to have sex with Dean Stockwell. And so I'm in my 40s, he's in his 80s. And I told the producers, I said, look, you've got enough of these
people around me to, you know, show their bodies and make it all about that. And I said, I want to wear a long satin, silk, something or other, and it's really not about showing our bodies or the sex. I'm basically wanting to frack him to death to get my husband out of the brig. And so they agreed with me, you know, it's more of a sophisticated, mature, PG situation. But so, you know, Dean's a much older man, and they put down on the couch a stunt double for him. Now, I don't know if any of you have had sex scenes or love scenes in the past. They're a little uncomfortable at best. And when you're standing in for an actor, they basically are trained to not do anything. They're just, you know, they're just standing in. In this case, this guy was just laying down. And I had to straddle him and start my thing, right? Start working him and like doing, and he's laying there like a dead whale. This was so shaming and embarrassing and so difficult to like, I mean, I'm doing the work of an army trying to like connect with this, and the camera's on me, and I'm like, you know, and Dean Stockwell smoking a cigar, watching this whole I want to be sick because it's just so intimately weird and hard and difficult, and there's this lump, and then he just gives the cigar to whoever's next to him and says, thank you very much to the man who's laying down for him, says, get up. And then he lays down and says, let's do this. And it was like, as soon as I sat on him, I straddled him, we had actor eye-to-eye contact, and you know you're in the zone, and you're in your adult playground, and your characters can do their thing, which is what we do. And it was amazing. And that's when the swirl, that's the whole swirl, that's the whole prelude to the swirl. I don't think the swirl would have been half as good if he didn't step in every down for that scene. There you go.
I love that. The moral of the story, never straddle a dead weight. Next question.
So a lot of you guys are in what's known as the sci-fi fantasy recycle, and you also tend to end up on the same shows together. So I just want to know, how exactly does that happen, and which of your former co-workers would you want to work with again that you haven't had a chance to?
Ooh.
What was the question?
The question was, mostly because living in Vancouver, Canada, a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, or genre type programming recast a lot of the great, amazing actors and actresses that like to play in that world of science fiction and fantasy. How awesome is it to see like other castmates that you've worked with before on different programs or film? And is there anyone that you have worked with before that you'd like to see and work with again on something in the future?
I think Dean Stockwell is a hell of an actor. I'd sure like to work with him again. Not only because of that. And I know
very
that
good.
Would too.
Not sure if I understand the question.
I think
But-
who have you worked with from the Battlestar Galactica cast again, and who would you like to work with?
I'd like to work with everybody again. I don't think I've worked with anybody, but yeah, why not?
I feel exactly the same way. I mean, it's such a privilege and it's such a gift to, on some level, get a job first of all, and then that job can turn out to be. We say the same things. It's now 2017. We finished in 2008. Look how busy this hall is on a Sunday morning in Atlanta, talking about a show that we did all that time ago. That's phenomenal. So I think that genuinely, I would jump at the chance to work with anybody who is in that show. I think we all loved each other and continue to speak to each other, and it'd be a privilege and a gift to do it again, in whatever fashion. Love that.
It's actually funny because when we wrapped the show, I think I was like gone the next day, and I hadn't been back up to Vancouver since we wrapped. So when I was there filming last week for something else, I was just sort of like in the same hotel, and like nothing's changed, and I was like, this is weird. Like,
is it any of the same crew?
It's none of the same crew from Battlestar. Is it?
There could be.
No, there's none of the same crew. But there's some of the same crew that did Star Trek. So I met a lot of the guys while Carl was up there filming, so I knew some of the crew. But on Longmire, when Callum came on the show, it was really cool because, like, Callum, speaking of amazing Canadian actors, so Callum was not contractually obligated to do Battlestar.
Callum Heath ran
Callum
the open.
Yeah. So Callum was one of those actors that was unavailable, and so they couldn't finish his storyline. He just sort of like never came back. And that sucked. That was like one of the things, for Kara, she was like so attached to this guy, and they had such a weird relationship that was like abusive, but like also sort of had like this weird attraction to each other as well. It was the weirdest thing. And we never got to sort of wrap that up. So when Cal came over to Santa Fe, it was like a dream come true for me. We like played golf every day, went out to eat, and like it sort of felt like my closure, even though Starbuck never got her closure. And he did like 4 episodes, I think, and it was just as big of an asshole. And it was character. His character, yeah, not him. I mean, he's a little bit of an asshole.
Question over here. Yes, this is especially for Ms. Sackhoff, Ms. Cardo. Your characters were rather physically oriented and I'm guessing you had to do a lot of physical training and stunt work. Can you describe any of the interesting stories you might have behind that, other than, for example, someone standing in for Dean Stockwell with papers and stuff?
No, I did all that sex scenes. No, so I grew up a tomboy. My dad sort of had this rule when I was a little girl, because I loved playing with all the boys. I grew up in a small town where, I was sort of like one of the boys, and my dad had this rule that you can play with the boys and on the boys' teams until you get hurt, and then you're moving over to the girls' teams. It was most specifically for soccer. And I remember the day I got hurt, and I was so upset because